Okay, so in this part of our session or webinar, we're going to talk about decommissioning data services to move towards SAP Datasphere. And I'm Maurizio Mosca. I'm a senior pre-sales and solution consultant at Wiiisdom, and I've been chosen to present this part because I also had in my past a lot of experience with data services. I used to be a data services consultant, so I had the privilege and the fortune to work with data services for many years, for many customers. So there we go. And now I'm using my skills to help Wiiisdom, among other things, with the data services part of it, apart from, in addition to business objects and Tableau and Power BI. So I'll be presenting this first part of the session, and I believe Sri is going to join us after me to have a few discussion and Q&As. So let's, yep.
Thank you very much, Maurizio. And then Maurizio, where are you located today?
I am in the beautiful Dolomites in Italy, in the mountains. It's a nice sunny day. It's been sunny in these few days. It's gonna get colder, maybe a bit of snow next week. But yeah, I'm in a UNESCO heritage site, so it's quite nice. As you can probably guess from my roof, which is like in true mountain style. Anyway, so
Maurizio, the reason behind of this topic is, we've heard a lot of customers saying, hey, you know what, we've got data services, and I see SAP got out with Datasphere, and actually there's a lot of value in Datasphere. And essentially, some of our customers told us, how can we do the decommissioning to go to Datasphere, as an example? And so while I was exchanging with Maurizio, and then we decided to put together this session today. So that was the whole idea behind. And Maurizio, by the way, I think I see you are sharing two screens. Just hold on. I'm going to see if I can.
Okay.
No, use one screen. I think you.
I just want to share the one with the slides, the presentation, not the.
You know what? I because right now we see the. Okay, perfect. Now it is all right now, Maurizio. Okay. So go for it, Maurizio.
Okay, so there we go. A few slides, some wonderful animation and images to keep yourselves entertained. But basically, what we're going to talk about today is, okay, there is this need, as some customers have, to migrate from data services, in this case to Datasphere. And, they've been asking us, well, can Wiiisdom help us with that? It will be great. It will be great to have a magic button, which unfortunately doesn't exist, where you can just push it and it lifts the code from data services, pushes into Dataspheres, and then, by magic, all of a sudden, everything is there, and then you can keep on working without worrying too much about what's been going on in the background. So unfortunately, that doesn't exist. Looking forward for the time when we can be able to implement that. So the next best thing is basically to have a structured approach to help you manage this migration. And obviously, there is a whole series of best practice processes that can help to prioritize your effort, to estimate your effort, to do everything in the most efficient and clean possible way. So, and obviously the main part of that, or let's say one of the most important steps, would be to, as in any type of migration, to start with a good analysis of what you have. So you need to migrate from data services. Okay, you need to migrate what's relevant. You need to know what you have. You need to know what it means. You need to be able to replicate what you had there into your own system. So the first thing that you want to do is definitely carry out some analysis. And when we're talking about analysis, and I'm listing a few points in here, just to give you a good overview. One of the main things you want to check, for example, is to analyze your jobs, your execution details from your legacy data services environment, which you've been running. And in that way, you can check how many jobs you have, how many jobs are actually being used in terms of being executed. When was the last time a certain job was executed? You know, a few weeks ago, maybe years ago, those kind of things. And then all the ones that are being executed and run regularly, how long does it take to run on average? How many rows do they process? Because that also will give you a good baseline to compare after you've done the migration and to make sure that you hit the same performance or hopefully better. So, but definitely it shouldn't be worse. So you want to have a baseline and some values and some statistics you can compare when you moved to Datasphere. And this is about jobs. Another thing that you might want to check is, okay, what do I have in my repositories? You know, I might have multiple repositories. Those repositories might use and might connect to different tables, lots of workflows, data flows. Maybe not all of those are actually being used. They've been created there and they sit there without any usage and any relevance. How are those objects built? So let's say, you know, this workflow, what does it have inside? You know, how many children in terms of data flows and other objects in there? Because that gives you also an idea on how you structure your code. Another thing, very important, your data sources. So obviously you want to know what kind of data you connect to, whether that is a database or files, and have an inventory of that. And also with, you know, maybe take also an opportunity to make sure that you don't have any duplication of those data sources. And then finally, but I'm sure there is much more, but in terms of the most important aspects, you will need to capture the logic of your jobs as they exist. And from that, extract your logic, your code, because you will need to replicate that in your new, obviously, environment into the Datasphere part of it. So with that in mind, let's see what we can do. So, okay, so this is all good. We need to do this analysis, but how is that possible? How can we do this? So maybe the first thing you think is, well, let's see if data services can help us with this. But really, data services is not a reporting tool, it's a developer tool. So it doesn't really lend itself very well to get that kind of analysis, or to get it in an efficient way without wasting a lot of time and getting lost into the details. And the main thing is, as we said, data services does have some reporting capabilities, but they're very limited. So for example, you can use the Data Services Management Console to kind of navigate through the repository, get PDF or Word documents of specific components, but you don't have much flexibility. It's like either you get this or you don't get anything. Either that, you know, a way to choose what you get or in what format and all of that. So it's all fixed and manual. So this is the auto documentation part of it. The other thing is, well, let's look into the designer and look at exploring that, which again, it means it's very time consuming. You need to click, expand things, go and look for code, for components. As you move across the paths, you might even forget, as it happens, where you started from, or you see different ways to go. So when you go chasing down one way, then you have to go back and chase the other way. Again, it's very, very time consuming. It's good for having a general idea, but it's not good for keeping that or recording that or creating some documentation of that. Actually, it's basically pretty much impossible. So on top of that, again, if you look at the functionality that there are some things you can even look for unless you actually go and find them. So for example, in the Data Services Designer, you can search for a specific data flow. You just type the data flow name and it gets highlighted. But you can't do that, for example, for SQL transform, for scripts. And these actually are quite important because more often than not, they contain some very complex logic that cannot maybe be replicated in the data flows. So these are the bits actually you want to capture most and more importantly, because it's those kind of bits that might get lost in the, you know, in the complexity of the jobs. And then again, it's all a manual process. You need to click through things, you need to expand, you need to follow paths, you need to go back and all of that. So it's not really something that will be very useful in terms of gathering all your initial evaluation information that will help you for the next stages of your process of migration. So on the other hand, we have our wonderful product, our 360 Eyes for Data Services, where we can use that product to extract all the metadata that is relevant in terms of the data services repositories with their objects. So we're talking about jobs, data flows, workflows, data stores, scripts, everything in there. Plus, in terms of jobs, we can also capture details about schedules of those jobs, how many times they run, if they run regularly, one-off, execution details, again, to gather your stats to compare after you move to your Datasphere system. And that will give you a baseline and a starting point. And again, it builds your bricks to be able then to gather all the information that you will need to rebuild your systems and your routines into Datasphere. So when we use 360 Eyes for Data Services, we extract all this data, and then leveraging the functionality of business objects, web intelligence, and the universe, we create and we have available a universe and a set of predefined reports that you can start using straight away. And obviously, it doesn't stop there. You have the universe, you have the functionality from web intelligence, so you can build your own version of the reports, you can explore further, you can easily distribute the results, create Excel spreadsheets, PDF reports to send to the relevant people. So obviously, it becomes much more collaborative and more efficient environment to work on. And so what we're going to do now, listing, with this few use cases that I mentioned before, I'm going to show some of the reports I've built. They are pretty much based on the existing templates, plus some manual customization just to make it more specific to this particular project. But I can show you how we can use this, our solution, to get you the information useful for this analysis for those few points. So if we start, for example, with the execution details, job execution details, I can show you here a very simple report. Again, the important thing is the data that you have. Obviously there is a lot you can do on the view on the graphical bits, but this is the most important thing you can do. So what you can see here, basically, it's a report that shows all the ETL jobs that exist in a specific repository, or in this case, in multiple repositories. And we can see, for example, the schedules, which jobs are scheduled to run. So already that these jobs run every day, a specific time, and they're active. So this is a regular kind of refresh that you do. But also you can get some insights that can help you in prioritizing your effort. So let's say which ones are most important. You can see in here, for example, I've highlighted some jobs in yellow that it looks like they never run. Or if they did, like this one here, that was like 2.5 years ago, more than 2.5 years ago. So at that point, you start thinking, well, okay, maybe all those jobs that never run or that don't run for a long time, maybe they don't need it anymore. So now that rather than having 75 jobs, 72 jobs to worry about, actually looks like there are only 7 that are the most important. And those are the ones I need to really explore. And the other ones I can leave them maybe for a later stage. We can check if they're needed, we can remove them, all of that. So that was already a good starting point, because all of a sudden, and again, stuff that is not used is very common in all systems. You think that you use most of the stuff, you realize after some analysis that maybe 60–70% hasn't been used in a really long time or not at all. So that's that's the first point. From that, let's have a look at analyze those objects inside those jobs, inside these repositories. Again, already focusing on the ones that you think are more relevant. So you can get some, in this case, again, very basic stuff, but very effective. You can see all the tables that are used, in which jobs, and what those tables, which data store they belong to. So again, a good starting point to start, drilling down into the details. You can see list of objects that exist, but they've never been used. So the code inside these workflows, data flows, those database tables that you can see here, is basically sitting there, but it's never been used. So again, maybe we can remove those, maybe we can, not worry about those. Another thing you can do, again, analyzing your repositories and the way your jobs are built, or, how do you build certain blocks of code? So, in data services, there is this concept of the workflow, which is a container for other objects. And usually that is a logical grouping of related code. So for example, all code relating to customers, it goes into a customer's workflow. And in there, you can already see with our solution, with the reports you can build, that how you put everything together. And again, that could give you a good idea on how to structure your routines and your logic when you move to Datasphere, because you might, decide to replicate the structure and the containers that you have in here. So again, that's another level on analysis, and I will help you again to concentrate on what is relevant and putting aside what doesn't look like is not important anyway. From that, again, I discussed, I was talking about data sources, very important. That's where your data comes from. You really need to know what's going on that side. So again, very easy, another simple report, but very effective. Data sources can come from databases, can be some files. You can get all the details. Again, you will need to reestablish those connections probably in your new system in Datasphere. So you have already a list of database systems, database names, users, file location. And again, using standard web intelligence functionality, you can immediately and quickly see, again, in yellow, duplication. This is something that I'm sure everybody's worked with data services has come through this. I've seen it many times with my clients. You have 50 data sources. Of those 50 data sources, you have some that are duplicated 2-3 times. They might have different names. You see the data store name is different, but the connection is actually the same. So why duplicate this effort? You can trap it straight away, and you can say, well, already I don't have to worry about 4 or 5 of those because I just need 1 of those, right? And the same with files. We have different file names, but they point to the same, location in your file system. So it's the same data. Again, very, very quickly and easy to do that. Now, try to do that directly in data services. I've done it. It's painful. It's a headache, especially when you have these huge systems with hundreds of data sources and data stores and hundreds of files and all of that. So again, you need to start writing things down and then compare it. It's just too time consuming. Yes.
By the way, Maurizio, there is a question from Jan that I can answer. Is there a need to migrate from SAP Data Services to Datasphere? Will SAP discontinue supporting data services? Absolutely not. So have no worries about that. It's the reason we're presenting that is some customers are going towards Datasphere, and essentially SAP has got absolutely no plan to discontinue data services. So have no worries. And of course, there will be a data services with BI 2025.
Exactly.
And what we, for some of you that maybe don't know, but some of the bones behind data services is actually business objects. It uses some of the same components, some of the same basis, and typically whenever there's a new BOBJ release, typically it's always a couple months later when it comes to data services. That's what we've seen over the years on that. So there's really, again, there is no reason to be concerned, and especially if you think about data services, these are absolutely huge projects, extremely time assuming, and this is actually where 360 is very handy. So I'll pass it back to Maurizio.
Yeah, exactly. You know, all you said is very, very true. I mean, you don't just decommission data services in 3 months or in 6 months. It's a very long process. There are lots of dependencies. If you use data services for a few years, you realize there is a lot that's been invested in that, because it's a very powerful tool. So you tend to use it. So, and that's why it's even more important to be able then to make sure that you don't lose anything in the, in the forest, because again, it's very, very easy to do it. So, we need to get all the help we can. So we look at those data sources. Now, that's also the fun bit, the most interesting bit. Actually, when you want to delve into the actual jobs, into the actual logic, how do I get all that logic? Years and years, developers and developers, lots of stuff that you do. I mean, the business logic is complex. So by its nature, you need to get complex logic also in your ETL routines. And again, in that sense, you can get help with our solution to deconstruct and find what you have in your repositories. Again, in a very visual, easy to distribute, easy to understand. You don't need even to log into data services. You just open the report, you send it to whoever is in charge, whoever needs to plan. And there are a couple of things that you can do very easily. So in this first case, we're going to look at the contents of data flows. And as you can see here, this is just one data flow. Actually, there is more than one, where you can see for each data flow, your sources on the left, which might be database tables, might be flat files. In one case, my data source will be a transformation SQL, which is not technically a data source, but it does the same thing. So that's why I decided in this report to put on the left, because it's where the data starts from a SQL query. You can see the SQL query inside that. Again, very, very easy. On the right, you see the end of the journey for that particular data flow, so the target tables. In the middle, you see the transformations for each data flow. And obviously, if you have multiple ones, you will see multiple set of data to show how the data from the source moves through the transformations, including some logic, and then ends up into the target table. Again, this is very, very valuable, because if you want to replicate that, or if maybe not literally, but at least you have your logic all in here, and you just need to translate it into your target, or in Datasphere in this case. But again, you need to start from what you have. So that's one thing. The other one, and I think personally this for me is the best feature that we have, because again, as I explained earlier on, try and find out your scripts into your jobs. There isn't a script tab that you can that lists all the scripts that you have, so you can click on one like you would do with data flows and open it and see the code. You can search for it. The only way to find the script is to open the project, open the job, start expanding everything, and we're talking about potentially hundreds of components and workflows with workflows inside with different levels of nesting, until you find one script. Then you open it and then you look at the code. And this is maybe just because you're looking for a specific function that you use somewhere at some point and you really need it now, but you don't know where it is. So it might take a long time. Similarly, you can really explore SQL transforms. This is just one example of the transform. So the SQL one, I thought it was most relevant because again, it may contain quite a lot of complex logic in it. You can search in data services. Oh, I remember there was a particular SQL script that I used to get something very specific, and I need to replicate it, but which job was it in? Which repository was it in? Which data flow was the SQL transform? Go find it. And again, we're talking about environments with many developers, hundreds of jobs, dozens of repositories. It's just, almost impossible. Whereas with our solution, again, it's just a bucket report. You get your objects, you list them in there. You can see the script name. You can see where the script is being saved, inside which workflow or job is being saved. You can see the code inside the script. So if you're looking for a specific function, you just use a normal filter and say, get me the script that contains this particular string. And the same thing for the SQL transforms. you're not able to find the SQL transform in data services. But with our solution, from the SQL transform, you can find the data flow that transform has been saved into. And again, you can find the SQL query that you were looking for. Same principle, apply filters, explore, copy, export to Excel, copy the text back into Datasphere environment. There you go. That's a lot of work and a lot of time saved, in a very easy way. And obviously, this is all reports that you can schedule, you can run regularly. In case something changes, it just picks up the new changes, and you always have the latest version of your repositories. You always can save previous versions in case you need to go, oh, well, actually, we need to replicate the job as it was 3 weeks ago because we made a mistake and what it is now is not right. You can always go back to that because we get these snapshots and we save them to get what you need at the right point in time. So again, this is a list of what we work with, the data that you can work with in a very user-friendly, documenting-friendly way. And what I've shown you here, it's just a highlight of what we can do. It's just a few use cases that are relevant to this particular project of the migration. There's obviously more stuff that you can do once you have a tool. And again, that is on the idea that, yeah, your project is to migrate, but as you're doing the migration, you still need to work in your data services and maintain it because there are still, users that rely on the processing on that part of your system. So you still need to be able maybe to get some information, and you may as well use our tool, our solution to do that. So for example, we can show with our reports how something changes across time if the data flow has been changed. You can see the before and after, you can highlight the differences. Or you can see how the data flows from the source table through the different data flows or different steps into the target table. Again, there is quite a lot you can do. And again, I already said it, it's worth repeating it. It plugs perfectly with business objects. We provide the universe, we provide a few starting reports so you can use to start your analysis. And again, if you know how to use business objects, it will be very, very easy then to create your own versions of the reports to use for your own specific needs. So there you go. It's still not the silver bullet because we still don't have that button that lifts and shifts, but I believe this is the next best thing with what there is at the moment to help you with your migration. And I believe, yeah, this is me done.
Thank you very much, Maurizio. And how easy is it to install and to get running?
Oh, well, it's very, very easy. You install the 360 Suite platform, you enable the module by applying the license. Everything is very intuitive. There is some minor configuration, mainly to be able to connect to your repository, and in there you can connect to multiple repositories, so you can decide what kind of analysis to do, and then you just run your tasks. It all integrates very well with the rest of our 360 solution, so it's all consistent. If you use 360 for other modules, for example, you will find that it's pretty much the same way of doing things, so that makes it also easier. And again, you're ready to run. And then obviously business objects, again, it's a very user-friendly tool to use to get your data, you extract your information from that. So yeah, minimal kind of overheads in terms of, learning how to use the tool and start, taking advantage of it.
And you don't even need to have BobJ behind. If you're a pure data services shop, here are the advantages. If you have BobJs, you can leverage your Webby documents.
Yes.
You don't
fundamentally, one of the components of this solution is a database where all the data gets saved. So if you don't have business objects, or if you want to make that data accessible by Power BI semantic layers, Tableau, Excel spreadsheets, you can do it because basically you connect into a database. So obviously, we offer business objects because there is a good synergy between the two technologies. So, but yeah, you're not restricted to that.
Thank you very much, Maurizio. We also have a special guest to finish this session. We have actually Sri from DXC. Sri, are you okay? I see you're on and I see your camera's working. Is your mic working, Sri? Can you hear us?
Can you hear me okay?
Perfect. So the reason we've invited Sri today is we've worked over the years with Sri, and essentially is Sri is actually working for DXC, and I'll let Sri after that introduce himself. But you know, he's been involved on different projects, for example, Data Services to Datasphere, and Sri actually has got a lot of knowledge when it comes to data services for similar projects. And so we wanted to get some of Sri's feedback. So first of all, Sri, thanks all for joining. Can you introduce yourself and then what DXC does for such projects?
Yeah, thanks, Bruno. My name is Sri Kaligotla. I am the solutions lead for data and AI service line within DXC, and we are one of the top 5, I think, right now, service integrators across the spectrum of software and consultancy implementation. So I specifically belong on the data and AI service line. We provide the entire spectrum of data and AI solutions. So yeah, I mean, excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
And you know, Sri, so today, what value, you know, using 360 Suite do you see, you know, on that type of projects with DXC, with customers leveraging data services?
Yeah, it's just mind blowing, right? Tremendous value. Like what Maurizio was showing, it just, you know, the acceleration is phenomenal. Like instead of having a team and dedicated effort to diagnose the current state, or, you know, essentially understand, rationalize the current state, it takes a matter of just, you know, you set up and then you know, you make the, you know, tool talk to the system, and then boom, you have it there. Which is, you know, it's true to the name of an accelerator, and actually, you know, product that can actually pay for itself pretty darn quickly, right? So that's the biggest value. The other pieces, you know, what we have seen is how it can actually enable data governance very well. You know, the pieces around one of the, you know, inhibitors for data governance is sadly, you know, sometimes technology too, where you just don't know how to keep up with the amount of change that's happening. And the way Maurizio showed, it actually shows you what changed and the impact analysis of any change, and also you can drill down to the details as needed. So that is significant, where the ease of actually doing that will enable a process which is very powerful. You know, usually, you know, there's a process, but then you don't have the details, so you can't really enforce anything. But here, it actually changes the game. So I believe that's the big value. Again, like I said, it pays for itself. And then it's just how we are, you know, the whole, at least in our industry, it's evolving, right? How do you bring automation to the table? How do you partner with, you know, in 360's capabilities like 360 Suite to bring value to the customer eventually, right? So I think that's the name.
And by the way, on these projects, when you get on these projects, what typically is it, you know, what is a common differentiating factor for you, you know, Sri, and for DXC? So I know you've won a lot of projects and very large projects as well. And why do customers go with you, Sri?
I mean, the comprehensiveness, right? Like we provide not only, again, just for the sake of doing the rationalization or the current state, it's to give them a tool or solution to maintain it ongoing, and then the comprehensive nature of solution, you know, be it whatever they're migrating to, you know, provide those solutions along with any advisory, and bring the latest and greatest tech to the table, and our partnerships, you know, partnerships with Wiiisdom, partnerships with all our, you know, major cloud providers and all that, and SAP, you know, essentially makes us that unique, you know, thought leader and help to implement any project. So
And on these projects, typically, is there something you want to share about what you see as the most complex parts, like from your experience, like, doing some projects, what do you see as the most complex?
Yeah, like Maurizio was showing, right? We had a situation where there's ton of personas that were using, especially data services, and you had logic either duplicated or there's complexity of the logic. It's become so easy to troubleshoot once you have implemented it that it's a simple search of a keyword. Or for example, we were exporting some file somewhere, and there was almost not possible to understand where was that being generated from until you dug through, let's say 50-60 jobs. Instead, here it was just a search, and you knew exactly where that job is, and and then go to the consumer or even the producer to figure out what do we do with it. So simple things like that is just unlocks a lot of potential, and then it just makes it easy to execute, and brings, again, end of the day, it's a value, right, to us, to the customer, so that they don't have to spend a ton of money on a very menial task like that, right? So it's just overall value, I would say. Yeah. And then there are several, I don't want to get into nitty-gritties of technicalities, but like Maurizio showed, there are ways to actually make it more efficient, actually use it for ongoing. That's one of the key pieces, like I mentioned earlier. The change management is just so critical, especially during any migration projects. You are planning these for a year or two, and then all of a sudden there's probably 50-60 jobs that are changed. So now it's actually easy because I can, with a couple of clicks, know what's exactly changed.
And do you have a couple tips to for such projects to share, Sri?
Yeah, I mean, I would say just emphasize the value of the change in data governance. I think that's, we usually just look at the acceleration or the speed to delivery. That's obviously the fundamental value, but how can you actually embed into your regular governance is what is the differentiator. How do you make it as part of your regular rhythm, and have that ongoing capability and visibility to what the usage, to the changes happening, and then end of the day, making sure you're using the tool, both SAP tools and Wiiisdom, to its full potential. So.
And is there something else you want to share, Sri, with the audience? I'm actually going to put your LinkedIn in the comments. So is there something else you want to share, Sri?
No, I mean, I think we talked decent, but end of the day, I think I was a excited user of the product and seller of the product, so can't be more excited to do more of these, even from an ongoing, like it's not necessarily for migration, it's even for just an ongoing maintenance and then governance process. So and then DXC can help with all of those across the board from a data and AI standpoint. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Sri, for joining today. I appreciate your time, and we're looking forward to continue to work with you. And please feel free to reach out to Sri. And I've included in the chat Sri's LinkedIn. So please reach out to him, and if you need something, you can also reach out to us, and we'll be more than happy to push you towards Sri. So thank you very much, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sri.